Healthy longevity. This has arrived in the minds of many people, not just as a vocabulary, but as a new world for their own health and long life. Startups present exciting results. Research institutes publish more and more studies, and longevity centers and clinics offer more and more treatments. The year 2023, it has brought tons of information, and now we provide the overview from the center of the world of longevity. And we'll take a quick look at next year. I'm happy to welcome the boss, the CEO of the Buck Institute for Research on Aging in California, Professor Eric Verdin. Thank you for taking your time. Thank you.
Hello, Nina. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm fine. Good to see you. So I know this is a little bit challenging question. Is there an outstanding personal highlight for you in longevity research and development this year?
The personal highlight is, I think, from the whole field has seen a big inflection point in this past year. As we will discuss later, there's lots that's happening at the Buck Institute and in the field in general. Personally, I think we will probably get a chance to talk about what longevity is and is not, and I think I'm personally on this journey as well, as I hope many of your listeners are. And one of the things that I've learned is the fact that you can always make progress in terms of how you can optimize your own health. So it's been a good year for me in many respects, and I look forward to sharing this with you and your audience today.
Thank you so much. Let's go from the closest to the big picture. The closest is the Longevity Week at Buck Institute at the beginning of December. 4 highlight and high-level events. The first symposium, Biomarkers of Aging Consortium, the BAAM Stanford Bay Area Aging Meeting, 2 days longevity meeting, and then the first International Roundtable Longevity Clinic. Of course, you couldn't always take part, but I guess you have close and great and big insights. Please give us an overview of all these 4 events.
Excuse me. So, this was the first time that we've tried to do this at the Buck. And so we are in Northern California, and the idea was to organize a whole series of meetings that would all take place in the same week so that you could, make the trip to the San Francisco Bay Area and get a full dose of what's happening in the longevity field. And so the meetings that took place really spanned the whole gamut of what aging or longevity research is today. So the first day, on the Monday, we had the first biomarker meeting. Biomarkers is the idea that we can now measure the rate at which you are aging. Think about, the way medicine works today is you typically would consider yourself healthy until you reach 65, and then you have a heart attack. And all of a sudden, you go from one day being healthy to being gravely ill. And so what these biomarkers, obviously, the heart attack that happens at 65 is the result of processes that started when you were 30 and 40 and 50. And what the whole field of biomarker of aging is able to do now, and this is early, but it's still, the evidence is there, is even as early as 30 or 40 to start detecting early markers that would predict the type of disease that you will have in the future. And so obviously we can do this very well in mice. We're starting to do this well in humans. And the consortium that met on that Monday really was aiming to start setting up standards for, as we consider bringing these tools to medicine. The idea is, how do we do this? What is ready for prime time? And how can we actually bring this new technology to a much more preventative form of medicine? So that was the first meeting. The second meeting was on Tuesday and Wednesday, was sort of an overview of the whole aging space, going from the very basic research which happens in many laboratories around the world and at the Buck Institute, to company starters, VC. So it was pretty much the whole ecosystems meeting together. Then we had BAM, which is Bay Area Aging Meetings. This is something I started, actually 15 years ago. And this is a basic science meeting between Stanford, UCSF, Berkeley, the Buck Institute, and other organizations in the Bay Area. And we have these meetings about twice a year. And this year they had 850 people. So only basic scientists working in the space of aging, meeting together. And then the last meeting was one that I'm particularly excited about. This was the first roundtable for clinics that are moving into the longevity space. As I mentioned earlier, we think that the science of aging is going to allow us to change medicine from a reactive model where medicine is very good at treating you if you're sick. It's not so good at preventing you from getting sick in the first place. And so these new longevity clinics are popping up all around the world. This meeting was co-organized by the Buck Institute and myself and Joanna Benz, who is the CEO of a longevity institute, which is both in Poland and in Switzerland. And we gathered a whole group of colleagues who are working in the longevity space from a clinical standpoint. And we also had representative of other clinics like HLI in San Diego and Andrea Meyer from Singapore. So this was really, again, the first of its kind. So this was a week with a lot of firsts, but it really conveys the excitement that's ongoing in the field right now.
Yeah, this event is outstanding this year. It's a kind of new dimension.
Yes, absolutely. And this is really, that's what I think, why I'm excited about the space right now. We've been toiling and working on aging for 25 years in my case. And we've been excited for 25 years, but it always felt sometimes that, where's the rest of the world? Why are people not seeing what we're seeing? But it's finally happening. And the biggest transition has been the realization that all of this research has been done in simple animal model systems, in mice and fruit flies and so on, now has applications to humans. And so we are at the beginning of what I think is a revolution of medical care in the future, very early beginning. So I don't want to overpromise. I think we have a lot of hard work to do, but the promise is there and it's generating a lot of excitement.
So the Longevity Week at the Buck Institute was only the final point in a long series of longevity conferences. Here are just the most important ones. It is the Longevity Med Summit in Lisbon in May, Dublin Longevity Summit in June, ARDD in Copenhagen in August, King's College Longevity Week in London, November. Most of them, there were very famous speakers, but often the same. Is there a kind of inflation in conferences?
Maybe a little bit, I think, because of the excitement. The audience, maybe the speakers were somewhat the same, but the meetings were taking place on both sides of the Atlantic. And I would say that I went to many of these meetings and the audience were not the same. So I got to meet people from all over the world. And we haven't even talked about all the purely scientific meetings, or at least 4 of them. So hopefully, in the future, I think there will be a consolidation in some really key meetings. But right now, I think it's a good reflection of the excitement of the field and the demand. People really want to learn and they want to grow this field together.
So back to the Buck research successes at the Buck Institute 2023. What was there to celebrate? Names, projects, spin-offs, please?
Yeah. So there was a lot happening in this past year. Just a word of introduction, the Buck has been in business for now 25 years. We started in 1999. And it was initially founded as an institute to study the biology of aging. And we've been doing this for 25 years. We have about 300 people, all working on aging. We are organized as a not-for-profit research institute, like an academic center. We have 24 faculty members, professors. They each direct small groups that are tackling all different aspects of aging research. And this past year was really a landmark year for us, and I would say 3 different respects. One, we recruited an extremely famous scientist. His name is Lee Hood, who is a father of a number of key concepts. He invented the first DNA sequencing machines back in the 80s, and which led to the sequencing of the human genome and the genomic revolution that we have now. He also is the concept of something called P4 medicine, which is a new form of medicine that's going to be mostly preventative. And recently, he has advanced a whole field called phenomic health. We talked about biomarkers of aging earlier today, and he is really at the leading edge of these biomarkers. Phenomics is the ability that we can now measure thousands of different parameters in living organisms. If you think about what medicine is doing today, we're measuring maybe 100, 200 parameters, and we're making all of our decisions in terms of healthcare based on these 1 to 200 parameters. With modern technology, what we call the omics, proteomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics, and so on, we can measure tens of thousands of different parameters. What we don't know is the relevance of all of these parameters to human health. And what Lee Hood is building right now is this whole idea of phenome health, which he's brought to the Buck Institute along with his group, is the ability to measure all of these things, but measuring them is the easy part. The hard part is to interpret them. And so the Center for Phenomic Health at the Buck is going to be using machine learning, AI, and the latest tools to try to integrate these very large data sets and really build a much more comprehensive picture and understanding of what human health is. And so recruiting him was a coup for us. He brings his whole team with him to the Buck, and that's really going to allow us to accelerate our work in this area. Another exciting part was we were the recipient of a very large grant from the Evolution, the Saudi Foundation, which has moved into the field. This is going to allow us to accelerate many of our programs. So that was number 2. And hopefully next year I can come back and tell you what we are doing with these new resources. And number 3 was the Buck conducted its first clinical trials. As we mentioned, aging research has moved from animal models into humans. And the key for this is going to be demonstrating the efficacy of what we're doing. And so we started our first clinical trials to test the effect of ketone body esters. And we can talk about this a little more later if you're interested. These are essentially new molecules that we have invented that allow you to enter a state of ketosis without any kind of specific diet. And so we're testing their safety and their effect in terms of aging parameters.
So which aging, we have to note immediately, which aging parameters are getting better. Cyclists and bicycle people, they took it, and these ketone ester. And what can we expect from that compound?
So there's a whole literature on the effect of these compounds for performance for athletes, but I should say this is somewhat controversial. I mean, some studies show an effect, some studies do not show an effect. So I think we need a lot more work in this area. Our focus has been mostly on cognitive health, on memory, on the functioning of your brain, and we have accumulated a significant evidence that ketosis, the process by which your body makes these ketone bodies, has protective effect on the brain. And there is, so a lot of our focus is really both normal aging, can you actually improve memory, improve functioning? Can you prevent the development of dementia, of Alzheimer's disease? And if you have early dementia, can we actually improve your cognition? So we have, in animal models, we have evidence that these ketone body esters actually provide a significant effect on memory and on cognitive function. And so now the key is to really prove this in humans. And this is the work that's ongoing right now.
And no side effects. That's really exciting. Let's talk about successes in international research and also about failures. What is exciting for consumers and what perhaps is also disappointing? Names, projects, companies, please.
Yeah, well, this is a big question to summarize a whole field of research.
Yes, I know. We are looking back on the whole year, at the whole.
Yeah, the whole year. I think one of the area is that I'm particularly excited about this whole idea of epigenetic reprogramming. So this idea that there is now evidence that using some tools in animal models, I should say this is not done in humans, and it will not be done in humans for a while, but in animal models, we can now reprogram all the cells to become younger. So there clearly is evidence of this. And it's a technology, we can get into the details. It's called epigenetic reprogramming. One way to think about this is if you think about every one of our cells has the same DNA. That's how we are built. But obviously, different cells are doing different things. Some cells are becoming red blood cells, and some cells are becoming neurons, brain cells. So epigenetics is the regulatory process that allows one cell to read the DNA to become a brain cells and the same DNA to become a red cell. So obviously these different cells are not reading the same part of the DNA, so they have an identity. And we know that during the aging process, this identity becomes a little looser. That is, your brain cell does not function purely as a brain cells and might be doing a little things that the red blood cells would be doing. Obviously, this is not optimal for health. And what the data shows is we can now, using tools, even small molecules or gene therapy, we can take this old cell, old brain cells, and make it behave more like a young brain cells. Now, what we don't know how to do is to do this in a living organism. We can do this in a dish, in isolated cells, but the principle is very profound because it implies that aging is a programmable process that we can at least partially reprogram. Now, there have been a large number of companies founded on this new idea. You might have heard about Altos. There's another one called Geroscience, and the companies are proliferating right now. So there's a lot of excitement about what this could mean as a first stage on isolated cells or tissues. But in the future, maybe on whole living organism. I think you could imagine in the future that you will go to a place to be rejuvenated and come back with your age having been sort of rewound for a few years. I don't think that this is going to lead to immortality or to us not dying, but it could be significant in terms of maintaining our health for longer. And this is why there's so much excitement in the field about this.
Yeah, Altos Labs means an investment more than $3 billion. How has investors' interest in startups and business ideas in the field of longevity developed 2023? The economic environment was not the best.
Yes, I agree. And if you look at what's happening in the biotech field in general, there's a lot of pain right now. A lot of companies are failing, and which is normal in any industry that is high technology, such as tech and biotech. We go through these booms and bust type of cycles. So I think at least I've been through several of them, and out of every one of them, the industry becomes stronger and stronger. If you look at what biotech has become, it's just an incredible force for drug development and human health in general. So in general, the field of biotech is hurting right now. But I would say the longevity space is a bit of the new kid on the block that is generating a lot of excitement and investments. And one of the reasons is because we are providing novel answers to long-standing problems. So I think and I predict this is only the beginning. One of the things that the buck is famous for is the so-called Geroscience hypothesis. This is the idea that aging is the biggest risk factor for a whole series of disease that we call the chronic disease of aging. And right now, these diseases are being tackled by medicine as if they were independent occurrence. Think about heart attack, stroke, macular degeneration, osteoporosis. Many forms of cancer are linked to aging. Neurodegeneration, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease. And the list goes on and on. If you have parents or grandparents, you have seen them, suffering from these diseases at the end of their lives. We know that aging is not necessarily associated with being sick. That's probably the most important thing. We know some people actually go to 100 years old and never see a doctor and not ill at all. So we know that the link between aging and disease is not necessary. It occurs for the majority of people, but we think it doesn't have to be this way. And so when we target aging pathways, we can slow down the development of all of these diseases together. This is what we see in the animal models. And so this is where I think our field could have an incredible effect on health in general and change really the picture that we have of getting old and getting sick. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be sick at the end or die. I think this is not what the field is busy with, but it means that you could really live, right now, the prediction based on what we know is that most people could live to 90, 95 years old in good health. Everybody. And I think to me, that's very powerful because this is not what's happening right now. Most people will live to about 65 in good health, and then the problems start, and they slowly accumulate until 80. Based on what we know today, most of people who listen to this podcast could live to 90, 95 in good health. To me, that's an incredibly powerful message, and that's the one I'm planning to live for myself. And I know you do too.
Me too.
We can continue doing this podcast for another 20 years.
Okay, let's do it. So you said longevity research is arriving in practice. Which clinics and which approaches have particularly stood out this year?
Yeah, so I have to be careful so I don't advertise for the clinics, but I work with many of them in terms of helping.
You may.
And I would say there are clearly a few leaders in the world. I mentioned Joanna Benz's clinic in Poland and in Switzerland is clearly one of them. They've been doing this for 3 years. They've done a pretty amazing job at trying to reinvent medicine. I can speak also of the HLI. This is a clinic in San Diego. They're more focused on diagnostics. They really are doing a great work. Andrea Meyer's clinic in Singapore. There's a new clinic happening now in the United Arab Emirates. There as a clinic, there's several clinics in London. Hook London is an interesting one. I've worked with them as well. There's Fountain Life is one that's very visible in the States. It started by Peter Diamandis and Tony Robbins. So all of these clinics what's really interesting when you talk to them is they are imbued by the same philosophy, is that health is a process that starts, that in which you start getting involved when you are in your 20s and 30s. One of the things that has emerged also of all of our work is the fact that your health is in your hands. Only about 7% of your health and your lifespan or health span is dependent on the genes that you've inherited by your parents. Most of it, more than 90%, is determined by lifestyle factors, how you live. And so to me, this is an incredibly empowering message for your audience to know that you can make a difference and it's never too late. We've seen cases of people who start a healthier lifestyle in their 60s, 70s, and still end up living much longer than they would have without these interventions. Now, the question is, what interventions and how can you, what can you do today to optimize your health? And, I hate to say it, but this is many of the things that we sort of know. It's nutrition, it's physical activity, it's stress mitigation, sleep, human connections. What the field is working on right now is trying to provide more precise answers. Okay, if I tell you what you need to exercise, Nina, to stay in good health, you're going to ask me, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to bike, run, or am I supposed to play squash, or am I supposed to play tennis, or do yoga? And so right now the field is trying to understand what are the forms of exercise that provide the biggest benefit, and how much, at what dose, and so on. And again, the biomarkers of aging that we've talked about allow us now to measure the effect of all these interventions. And the same goes for nutrition. A lot of controversy. Should I be a vegetarian, a vegan? Should I be on a ketogenic diet? Should I fast? Should I not fast? Again, lots of work is going in these areas to try to define what is the optimal way of living. I can tell you, it is not what many people are doing. And the thing that excites me the most is quite often very simple changes in lifestyle can have very profound effect on your health. And I'll leave you with one last little example, which is the evidence shows that walking 25 minutes a day 25 minutes every day has a very profound effect on your health. And there are many people who don't walk 25 minutes a day. That's 12 minutes in the morning and 12 minutes at night. So this will result in a 40% decrease in your risk of cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's disease year over year. So obviously you can do more and you can further decrease your risk, but something as simple as walking 25 to 30 minutes a day will already have a profound effect.
My dog is my longevity trainer. So the whole longevity field now needs the support of politics and health insurances. Has anything happened this year?
Yes. Along with, first, there's always a lag between science and the response by politicians. And I think there's been a recognition that a lot of the success of what we recommend, that we've identified, is going to be dependent on politicians who, at the end, help us to build the society that we want. So I really view my role in part as an educator. So I sit, at the sort of the center of this whole field of aging research, which allows me to, know what's going on and also to share it with people. So there's in different countries, different efforts are ongoing to build political awareness. In the US, there's been an organization that's been created for the purpose of lobbying Congress to make them aware of what's happening. Because the truth is that these issues of aging are going to affect all of our societies. In the US, in Europe, and everywhere else, in the developing world and the developed world, there is an acceleration of the aging populations. We're living much longer than we used to, but we're also aging not in such a good way. We have a rapidly aging population, which is carrying a very heavy burden of disease. And these diseases have a very negative, costly effect on healthcare and society in general. And if you look in most Western countries, we see the expenditure in terms of healthcare dollars or or euros rapidly increasing. And there's a realization that it's an unsustainable system. So the idea of living, all of us, healthier is not only wonderful because you can spend more time with your children, your grandchildren, or your friends and family, but is also, as a society, we have to strive for a better health. And this is what this field is really at the center. And bringing the politicians on board, the politicians, not only the politicians, because the politicians only respond to what the people want, who are electing them. I think the first thing is really to educate the public to what the potential of all of this work means to their lives. And once people are convinced, I think they will make demands from politicians and from their health insurance and so on to actually change the way we operate.
Yeah, and the communication is my job.
Good.
And what we also need is longevity as a further training in the education of medical professionals. What's going on there?
Yes, so this is again another area. Medicine is extremely good at treating you if you're ill. And, you know, we have all to be grateful about novel therapies and interventions. If you have a heart attack, you're much more likely to survive. If you have a cancer, you know, medicine has made enormous progress in the last 15 years about cancer treatment, and there's going to be a lot more. What our field is really preoccupied with is, can we prevent you from getting sick at the first place, or at least sick so early? As I mentioned, you know, at 60, if you're 65 years old, 70% of people already carry one of the diseases that I mentioned. 70%. That means, and by the time you're 70, most people, you know, close to 75% again, carry two of these chronic diseases of aging. And so this has a very profound effect on the quality of your life and you know, the way you're enjoying life. And we know exceptions to this. So it does not have to be this way. We're starting to understand the mechanism that link aging to disease. And there are processes that we can interfere with. So the whole idea is really to, you know, create a new form of medicine. I used to say that we had to reform medicine. I'm a little more pessimistic about this. I think what we have to do is to create another form of medicine, which is going to work with the intervention, the reactive medicine. And so there are a lot of efforts going in this direction, talks about creating new medical schools. Believe it or not, I went to medical school in Belgium in the mid-70s and early 80s, and we never had one single class about nutrition. No one ever mentioned sleep. No one ever mentioned physical exercise. And now you might think, well, this is unique. I went to school at the time of the dinosaurs, but it's still the same. I talk to friends who are teaching in medical school, and they tell me, no, there's still no nutrition class, no information about all lifestyle factors that are important to keep you healthy. So I think we have to create a new form of physicians that are really preoccupied with keeping you healthy. And this will come. This will happen. Lots of effort, lots of discussions are going in this direction.
Healthcare first, not sick care. That's it.
Exactly.
More and more people, I feel it in my surrounding, they are very, very much interested in the topic of longevity, but they are more and more and increasingly insecure because there are so many people who are selling snake oil. And there are dubious dealers on the move. What to do?
First, to know that there are no proven medicine that increase or supplements that increase health span or lifespan today. So that's what the field is working on. We are working on these interventions, and they could be either drugs or supplements. You know, the whole field of supplement is probably the one that is the most fascinating, because what is happening is people are now waiting for the whole process of drug development. You know, our laboratory will publish on a supplement, and we've published the ketone body esters as a good example. So I'm part of the problem, and I want to acknowledge this. So we have these ketone body esters. it's a natural product. So it is like something that your body and my body can make naturally. We have exciting data in animal models. So we actually decided to sell it. And it was approved by the FDA as a supplement. Now, it's important to understand when you're taking the supplement, it has not been proven to be efficacious in humans. And so the same thing goes for a whole series of other NAD boosters, for example, NR, NMN. You can buy them. They are doing things that are really quite interesting in animal models, but they have not been proven in humans. So I would say, and some of my colleagues are pushing some of these supplements more aggressively than others. I would say, if you're going to take a supplement, first educate yourself, surround yourself by people who understand the field. There are some doctors who are becoming more aware, but also understand that the most important thing that you can do today for your health is lifestyle. And it makes absolutely no sense for me to take a supplement if you have not optimized your sleep, your nutrition, your physical activity, your human connections, all of this. That's the foundation. Second tier would be the supplements. Some of them, most of them are generally safe because that's how you can sell supplements when they've been proven to be safe. But last step would be the development of true drugs that have been shown to interfere with the aging process. And so this is something that we're working on using clinical trials and all the approaches that have been used in the past to test medicine. So remember what your foundation should be, which is lifestyle. And then if you want to consider a supplement or another, there are some things that I predict will have a beneficial effect, but this should be done in discussion with a doctor that understands the field. And I would say, the biggest danger is for you to start going on the internet and buying this and that from Amazon and taking it, hoping that it's going to make you better. Many of these supplements are of poor quality. So there are a lot, the whole world of supplement is a pretty tricky one. And if you're going to do this, talk to someone who knows the field.
And in my view, women hormone replacement therapy is also very interesting. But let's have a look at the next year. What might you expect breakthroughs in R&D, new diagnostics, new therapies?
It's very hard to
I know
to make prediction. It's actually Niels Bohr, the famous physicist from Denmark, said it's very difficult to make prediction, especially about the future. Yes. And so I hate to make predictions. I think what you can expect is increased investment, increased announcements, increased data. It's hard, I don't have sort of a crystal ball to tell you which one is going to be working and which one is not going to be working. I guess that's it. No magic announcements. The great news is the excitement that's happening in the field, but also the realization that right now we have a lot more ideas than we have resources to do the work. And I've been arguing, for example, the Buck Institute, we have 3 buildings built out of 5. If I could fill 2 more buildings with colleagues and scientists, and we could accelerate our work dramatically. So if this can serve any purpose, is as a pitch to someone who has extra resources and who is excited about what we're doing, contact us. We're looking to grow. The field is at a tipping point where there are a lot of avenues to pursue. Obviously, we're limited by resources. You've heard about Jeff Bezos and other people contributing to the field, but there's still a lot more than we could do. All of this effort that you've heard in the past year was all about cellular reprogramming. That's sort of the flavor of the day, what's in style, what's exciting, but there is so much more that we could do about nutrition, about physical exercise. And I think, I'm always, my job basically is to be a fundraiser to spread the word about the excitement, and hopefully to build this institution. We could double our size and still have more idea to test. So that the word is excitement, more data, more support, and hopefully next year we can announce some, major breakthroughs.
Yeah, great. You are really a great ambassador for the whole longevity field. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Looking back and into the next year. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.